Welcome back. You're watching IREX 2025, and we have this interesting fireside with Mr. Girish Mohile, Vice President, India CMB Regional Centers. I would like to tell our viewers that CMB Regional Centers, one of the oldest regional centers in the US. Thanks, Girish, for speaking with us on NDTV. To begin with, if you can tell us, what is CMB Regional Centers' main business?
Thank you so much, Ambika. So CMB Regional Center's main business is to act as a fiduciary on behalf of its investors. We specialize in EB5 visa. It's an investment-based visa which allows investors to invest in a qualifying business, which will allow them to get a green card or a permanent residency for the US. It includes the main applicant, spouse, and unmarried children below 21. So what CMB really does is we source projects, we work with different developers, and we analyze the projects whether the investment which goes into those projects will qualify those investors for EB5 or not. And then we allow them or open them up for investment to our prospective investors. The minimum investment amount for EB5 visa is 800,000 US dollars. That's what we function in. So we mostly have projects which are in a targeted employment area, which allows the investment amount to be reduced to 800,000 US dollars. You can probably start your own business, but you need to take care of the job creation yourself. You need to invest the money into a qualifying business with an investment amount of $1,050,000 US dollars. So what we do really is to simplify the EB5 process. We differentiate the goals of each of our investors, where the primary goal is to secure the green card and the repayment of the investment that they do.
Okay, so now that you've explained how well, about what you all do and about, you've explained EB5 really well. I want to know if you can tell us what are the benefits of the EB5 visa, Girish?
So first we need to analyze whether you want to reside in the US permanently or not. Once you know that you're looking for a permanent residency in the US, then EB5 becomes one of the fastest option, or rather the fastest option to be in the US permanently. As I mentioned earlier, the investment criterion is 800,000 US dollars, which will allow the main applicant, spouse, and children below 21 to secure a green card. So your whole family is covered. The advantage is once you have a green card, you don't have to worry about your job.
Yeah.
So you can hop your jobs, you can start your own business, your children can study in the US. If you opt for in-state tuitions, you go to those colleges, then essentially the fees are reduced substantially. So there are a lot of advantages of becoming a permanent resident, and EB5 opens that option up to someone who has the wherewithal to invest 800,000 US dollars,
okay,
potentially keep them invested for 5 to 7 years, and then the repayment of your capital also happens. One more thing is, when it comes to EB5 investment, it's very important to understand that it's not a traditional investment. Even though it's called as an investment-based immigration program, what you're really looking for as a return on your investment is that green card. The return of your investment is usually going to be less than 1% per annum.
Okay, so now that we know EB5, we know the benefits, what would you like to tell us about the key factors that an investor or an individual should keep in mind before actually evaluating the EB5 visa?
So once someone has finally decided that they want to move forward with Regional Center EB5, firstly, they should start speaking with the regional centers, the immigration attorneys. So the immigration attorneys are the ones who are going to interface directly on behalf of the investors with the USCIS. So they will conduct source of funds documentation, and they will actually do the filing with USCIS. From a regional center standpoint, what we do is we have already sourced a particular project at a given point in time, which we will produce all the information in front of the investor. That investor then will ask questions. And it's very important to ask questions, because that is when you will find that ultimate comfort to move forward with that particular regional center. But it's not necessary that you need to speak with just one. There are a lot of regional centers with a lot of history. So what someone needs to analyze as an investor is, which regional center do I find comfort with when all the information is there? It's not just emotional comfort, but a real-time objective comfort that you find with that regional center. Who are they working with? Whether themselves, they are the developers or not. Whether it's a vertically integrated situation or not. If they are working with different developers, then what is the track record between that regional center and that developer in the past? And then the ultimate product wherein your funds are going to go is that project. What project is in place right now? Maybe the asset class, maybe the location, every investor will need to get comfortable with all these aspects before moving forward with any decision when it comes to EB5 visa. And from a source of funds perspective, since someone is sending funds from India, you need to comply the Indian regulations, Indian laws, and also comply with the US EB5 laws as well.
Girish, you spoke about the regional centers, right? I mean, of course, there's so much out there in the market. It can be pretty confusing, for an investor, an individual who's first trying to figure out, what they want to do, when they want to go. So are all the EB5 regional centers the same, or does the choice of actually choosing the correct regional center actually make a difference?
The answer is yes and no. It's a bit nuanced. The reason being, regional center is a designation. So any entity who qualifies as a regional center can essentially operate in this space. What differentiates every regional center is the way they function in the market. So just to give you one more example, I already covered the vertically integrated one. Another example is if I have a regional center designation, but I don't really actively work in this environment, but I do have that designation. So a developer comes to me and says that, hey, you know what, I have this project, I want to raise EB5 capital, and you have this designation. I don't have time to apply for my own. So would you rent this designation to me? And there are regional centers who essentially take no due diligence efforts from their end, but they just rent out their regional center designation to others. So that's one point to be noted by prospective investors as to what the involvement of that regional center is. Whether they are acting as a fiduciary on behalf of its investors, or they are just producing a project and then taking a back seat. That's the first point. The second point, and the most important point, is to analyze the history of that regional center, because that's the simplest way where you will be able to understand how that regional center functions and in what manner they have those set standards to conduct due diligence on the projects that they have onboarded, and what asset classes they have worked with in the past, which developers they have worked with in the past. And that is how you will be able to zero in on a specific regional center and a project.
Okay, so now lastly, I'm going to quickly ask you, three most important points when it comes for an investor to keep in mind before they go in for the EB5 visa.
The first point is to finalize whether you want to go forward with EB5, whether your dream is to live permanently in the US or not. Secondly, whether the project that I'm investing in, whether I'm rushing into it, someone is just marketing it, oh, this project is going to be over in 2 or 3 days, and you need to take a call right now. Not the right way, in my opinion, because at the end, you're putting your hard-earned $800,000 into that project with that regional center, trusting them with your hard-earned money. So I would not rush into anything. I would conduct due diligence. I would ask as many questions as possible. There are many regional centers who are going to have a subsequent project out there in the market. So I would not rush. And third and most important is to analyze what exactly you're looking for in terms of timelines. Now, as we discussed in the previous panel as well, that there are projects which are in high unemployment area with a better or greater track record. There are rural projects where we are yet to see the track record in terms of repayment of capital, but there are certain situations where you would want to take that additional element of risk because the project makes sense. So every case, it's not one size fits all. You need to take that call on your own. An informed decision needs to be taken by the investor themselves, and do not get forced into any kind of timelines or investments.
I know I did say last, but I have another question which came into my mind, especially, because this will help the investors or the audience and the viewers. Girish, tell us how important is it? Of course, the regional center you've explained us, you've told us everything about the EB5, getting the right law firm as well, the attorney, that side, and both of them working complementary to each other to help the investor. Quickly, I'm going to ask you that.
Right, so it's very important to have all the stakeholders which you find comfort with. And again, not emotional comfort, but objectively. If I'm working with a law firm, I would ask them how many Indian cases have you worked in? Because there are a lot of attorneys who have a lot of experience, but perhaps they are not so well versed with the Indian situation. Now, if you think about someone who is planning their source of funds from business, the business might take you back 8 or 10 years for the documentation to gather, and that is going to take a very experienced immigration attorney who should be well versed in sorting those documentations out. Otherwise, what will happen is you might get an RFE, which is request for evidence from the USCIS seeking clarifications or extra information on the documentation, and worst case scenario, a noid or a denial on your petition. So that's from a legal perspective. Same goes with regional center. You obviously have a project which has probably been approved by USCIS, but you also need to go beyond that to check whether all the entitlements are in place on behalf of the investor, whether the senior loan, if in case there is a senior lender in place, whether that senior lender has already been finalized or whether developer is scrambling for that senior lender to come in and is just pushing the EB5 loan into the project. And most importantly, where is the funds coming from when it comes to developer? Is there skin in the game? And if there is skin in the game, whether they are looking for any potential funding from other entities or they already have that bridged into the EB5 project, so that whenever the EB5 project is being constructed and EB5 investors start coming in, probably the EB5 capital is going to bridge their own equity. That makes perfect sense as well. So you know that the construction timelines are moving forward, irrespective of the EB5 funds being there or not. And this is very important from a perspective that a very common question is, what if I'm in the middle of that a project where I've invested and I'm the last investor in and the program suddenly sunsets or the program shuts down? What's going to happen? So from a perspective of the law, there is a grandfathering provision, as we discussed in the previous panel as well, that if you apply prior to September 30th of 2026, USCIS is obligated to adjudicate that process. But what happens from the business side? What happens from a construction side? Because if the regional center is unable to raise more funds from an EB5 perspective, what happens to the construction? That is when we need to analyze whether the developer has enough wherewithal at their end to secure more capital to be put into that project or not. So all these are important points.
I think really well explained. While the EB5 visa could be the fastest way to someone, for their dream if they want to be in the US, and the law firm obviously and the regional centers play a critical role. But I think equally important is that the investor himself, like you rightly said, does due diligence and needs to know whether it's, why he wants to go and has all his answers in place before.
Due diligence is the word of the day.
Yes. Thank you so much, Girish. It's really been a pleasure to have you with us on NDTV.
Thank you so much. Thank you.